Okay, we're recording now. I just wanted to take a second and go over the project requirements, okay? Because after today, you will basically know, I'm about to give you, we're gonna finish out what we started yesterday, and it would be considered a passable project, okay? So I just want everyone to get it in their heads, what the minimum requirements for this project are, because I think that you'll find that they're quite easy. And I want everyone to know, take into consideration your past, right? Previous project builds, and really take away from today, when you're thinking about your MVP, your minimum viable product, right? What's gonna pass the project review, you're thinking at something at this scale. And then, and only then, once you have something that passes what the project requirements are, should you go further and build out other things. So OSHA says, what about next week? Next week is going to be object-oriented JavaScript. There's going to be one thing that is going to change with object-oriented JavaScript. Yes, you are required to put a little bit of object-oriented JavaScript in, but next week I'm going to walk you through. I think I'm going to redo this project and make it all object-oriented, but the first day I'm going to say, this is going to be enough. So that's why I want to go over the project requirements, just so you have an idea about what you need, okay? So the application must be in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript frontend with the Rails API backend. All interactions between the client and the server must be handled asynchronously, AJAX, and use JSON as the communication format. What does this mean? No page refreshes, no more than one index.html page. Okay, that's the takeaway from this kind of requirement. Single page application, no refreshes, everything happens through asynchronous JavaScript requests. Okay. The JavaScript application must use object-oriented JavaScript to encapsulate related data and secure. Again, this is what I'm going to go over next week. So don't freak out about this right now. It's something small that we can do together. I'm going to leave it up to you to determine how much you're willing to challenge yourself. But again, I might even ask you, build it out in a way that makes sense to you first, and then kind of incorporate the object-oriented programming. I'm going to show you the base requirements of what I think should be accepted for object-oriented programming in the project review, but I'm going to go the entire way and build this entire project out using object-oriented programming, okay? So again, here's what you need, but if you want to push yourself to go the entire way, this is what it would look like. Okay, object-oriented programming is really just kind of getting us in the groove for React, okay? The domain model served by the Rails backend must include a resource with at least one has-many relationship. For example, if you were building an Instagram clone, you might display a list of photos with associated comments. In the project that I'm building up with you guys, it's cities and countries, right? The backend and frontend must collaborate to demonstrate client-server communication. Your application should at least have at least 3 AJAX calls covering at least 2 of create, read, update, and delete. You don't need full CRUD here. You just need 2. You're probably already going to have read, so it's going to be up to you if you want to do create, update, or delete. Okay? You only need 2, 3 AJAX calls total, meaning that you could maybe do read in 2 different ways. I don't know. There just needs to be the word fetch in here 3 times, right? But in those 3 times, they need to be at least 2 different ones. Okay, that's what the requirement is saying. 3 times we use fetch in our project, where we write out a function that does fetch, or not even write out a function. If you have a reusable function, that's fine, right? But we need to make 3 requests using fetch, but they need to span at least create, read, update, or delete. Your client-side JavaScript must use fetch with the appropriate HTTP verb, and your Rails API should use the RESTful routing conventions. Okay, so everything Rails related should be the same as a previous project. That's it. Okay. Any questions?
Chris, you say, well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm having audio issues today. So the project that you said that you are going to do in fully object orientation, that's going to be the demo project, basically the one that you have on your right.
Yeah, I think so. That's how I historically do it.
All right. Cool. And then early next week, you're going to go over pretty much the bare minimum for our MVP of what is required for the project.
This is basically what we just went over is basically it.
What the picture?
No, that was something OSHA put in the chat.
Oh, you could do. How could she do?
I don't know. There's a.
Oh, you opened it up from the chat. I thought you like somehow inserted a picture on your screen. I was like, oh, that can get dangerous. I'm gonna follow that.
So yes, one lesson on Tuesday next week. Our lesson is going to be over ES6 syntax and intro to object-oriented programming. But then Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, I'm basically going to build an entire. I'm going to change this project from this into an object-oriented program. Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
So there's not a lot of new material coming ahead. I mean, yes, there is a lot of material coming ahead, but the point that I'm trying to get across is that after this week, all the foundations are there. You should be able to build a project. That's going to pass the requirements. Oh, second thing, please, and iterate this for, shout this out to anybody who is not in this in this lecture right now. Do not watch the example projects. They are out of this world, difficult, and completely unrealistic for anybody to see. I am trying to gather some people to do the demo projects for you like I always do next Friday. Okay? Do not look at this. They're horrible. I don't know why they're there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So last time, I think like last week, you mentioned like you were worried that you gave us too many examples of like really good projects, but I mean, I think like I hope we still have really good examples of really good projects too, because they're awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, I will try to. It's hard, I kind of just say who can share. I don't look at their projects in advance. I'll just take whoever can share. But then sometimes I'm like, I don't want this to be the standard for students, because what happens is I love the fact that the project reviews, the project demos inspire students, but at the end of the day, some students just go above and beyond when this alone would have gotten them the pass. And it's not necessarily about not being inspired. Remember, this all comes back to planning. So plan for a big project if that's what you want, but start small. Meet the requirements first, and then build, and then make it bigger. Okay. So more so than this being about dreaming up something big, I'm not against that. But I am for giving you an example of what a pass is, so that you can start there and then dream up of how you want to make it bigger. Okay. Any more questions about this? I just want us to get in project mode because it's the week after next, and I want us to just start thinking. If it's nerve-wracking for you, there's a lot of material left to go over in JavaScript. But the reason why, I just want to start talking about this now is despite everything that's going to be coming your way, you guys know a lot already. If you've been keeping up with the material and you're caught up with the labs, you should know everything to be able to build out a project. The only thing that we're missing is just that object-oriented aspect. Okay? All right. So, CRUD. I have added some things to our country app. I changed it from North American countries to just some countries so that we can, put more countries here. I have a form for us, right? To add a country, I have buttons so that we can add cities to our countries, to edit the country, and to delete the country. Okay. So I'm kind of leave it up to you guys to see how we want to go, but well, maybe not. Maybe I'll make an executive decision and say, for me, in order to demonstrate to you what the easiest to the hardest would be, I would say deleting is going to be the easiest thing to do. Okay. Then I would say adding is going to be the second easiest thing to do, and the hardest thing to do is going to edit. Is going to be to edit. Okay. So I don't know if you guys want to see the hardest thing and not see the other two. I don't know. So I kind of want to. We're not going to have time to do full CRUD today. We're probably going to have enough time to do. Edit might take up the whole time, to be honest, but delete and submit we can probably do together. So. Oh gosh, okay. But to be honest, put in the chat what you guys want to see. Okay. Okay, Ryan says he disagrees. Okay, let's just try to get edit done. Okay. I haven't really planned out how I want to do this. But when I think about how we would do an edit, I would maybe just do, I would turn these fields here kind of maybe into a form, and I would maybe change the edit button to like a submit button. Okay, does that sound good? Does anyone have kind of any other ideas of how they would want to do it? Okay, so for the sake of this being kind of new information, I'm really going to kind of guide this, and maybe along the way I'll stop and ask some kind of smaller questions that I think you guys would feel comfortable doing. Okay. But for the purposes of this project, I'm going to use my favorite method, the one event listener to rule them all, and I'm going to put it on the div that all of these have in common, right? So looking at my index.html page, that's probably going to be the country container, right? So on the country container, I'm going to add an event listener, which I've already grabbed. Country containers up top. So I'm going to say country container.
Chris,
go ahead.
I actually have a topical question about that. Okay. One listener ruled them all. If I understand it correctly, you're saying like instead of focusing on the specific button, you're just listening to the entire div.
Yep.
However, like in this lab, was it the like when we had to redo the like app? Can't remember what the lab was called, but
the DOM challenge.
Say that again.
The DOM challenge.
No, it was like the liker challenge, the liker app. It was an app where people had posts, and then you click the heart to make it red, and unclick it to make it not red. And task lister, like, thanks for Gina. That one. Either way, it's just a challenge where we had to click a button to make it a heart or not. I put the listener on the entire kind of div, and what I found was when I had the cursor over the entire div, I could click anywhere on the screen to actually make that heart button light up.
Right. So you missed the step of the if statement, and you have to use the conditional inside, right? You have to ask the question if the event has a target of a delete button, right?
Oh, okay. That was another question I had. I was going to say that for the end of today, but I was going to ask you exactly about target. Okay, so as long as you can please go over that at some point today, again, or even after class for me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, cool. So I put these buttons in here. I could put more information in here. I could say, for the delete button, I could say, I'll say class name, it's a delete button. And I don't know if you have seen this yet, but we're going to use this very handy attribute called dataset. And in order to add info to the dataset, you just use the word data dash, and then put whatever you kind of want it to be. So in this case, I want to store the country ID here. I think that's going to be pretty easy. As you've seen, we've kind of done this in a couple places. That's fine. And if we refresh the page and we look at this, oops, what did I do? Oh, it's because I didn't finish saving that up. We inspect the element here. Now there's this information about the country here. And we'll look at that a little bit more closely. So e.target.class name, if it's equal to the delete button, then let's console log the target of the event. Okay. Oops. 133. Oh, comma. Okay. So in here, if I want to get access to that data set, I just say e.target, which is the button, and I say data set, country. And that's going to give me the ID of the country. Any questions about data set? Very handy way to store information that isn't necessarily relevant to the button, but is going to be helpful for any actions that we want the button to do.
Data set, I saw that in the lab as well. Data set is an inherent thing in JavaScript.
It's inherent in HTML, right? We can store this inside of HTML. Data country, data, you know, word, I don't know.
So the syntax is like data dash something, and then later you
And then when you want to
call
access it, it's data set, yeah.
Dot, whatever you call it.
Right.
And is that just stored in memory? Or?
It composes an object. The key being whatever came after the dash, and the value being what comes after the equal sign.
And that's just stored as, I mean, is that stored in memory or?
Yeah,
where does that go?
Stored in the browser memory, yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's just reading it from the target, from the element itself. So I don't know if it's stored in memory. It's stored on the HTML attribute.
But it's not in our database or anything like that. It's not doing anything with our database.
No. We haven't done anything with our database.
All right.
Yeah, I guess the word data is confusing, but it just means data that we're storing on the button. So not anywhere else, just in HTML. And once we've done that, I'm saying, okay, so I know that basically I want to turn all of this into a form, basically. So maybe what I can do here is maybe I can wrap this information in another div that I can say country-id-details, so that it's separate from this UL. And maybe this UL can give an ID of country ID cities. I think I might like that a little bit more. So we have a country container, and then we have country 1, country 2, country 3, and inside of here we have country 1 details. Oh, I forgot to close this. Country container, country 1, country 2, country 3, and then here I've got country 1 details, country 1 cities. Okay, great. I like the way that this looks. So then in here I can maybe say, okay, so now let's grab the country details. So we'll say country details div, let country details div equal document.getElementById, and I'll say country dash, and then here I can use the information in the data set, e.target.dataset.country dash details. And then let's see if I get the right div in my console. Perfect. And now I want to change this inner HTML basically kind of into like a form, right? But maybe first I kind of need to like grab the grab the values inside of it here. So maybe it would be more helpful if I put something like, let's see, how do I do this? Could maybe do, could maybe put spans inside each of them. Something like that maybe. And then I could say something like, okay, and then I'm going to need to compose a form. So I have this as a, I have this as a form here. So maybe I'm going to use this. Let me bring it over here. And I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to use it yet, but I've got some HTML. Say country details. Okay, so then country, hold on. Say country details div. So maybe I'll say like let info equal country details div dot query selector. And then I'll basically grab everything with a span. Yeah, you could make the form. Yeah, I could do that, but I'll do that in a second. And then let's console log the info. And then we'll say query selector. So, but then I just want the, let's check this out really quick. 943. Yeah, I need to comment this out.
You don't need query selector all.
Oh yeah, query selector all, thanks. And then I basically just want the inner values of them. So I can say something like, I'll map over them and I'll get the, or the span. I'll say span dot inner text, something like that. Oops. Oh, right. You can't call, wait, query selector all dot map is not a function. I think this is because the map, you can't call map on a node list. Hold on a second, let me double check if that's a node list.
Maybe you select.
You can't use select isn't a function on arrays in JavaScript. It's now filter, and you can't use it because node lists are array-like objects, but they're not arrays. So we might have to do this thing like array.from, and then do something like that. Oh, undefined. Span.innerText. Let's see. So what is this? Logs span.innerText. Why can't we do the inner text here? Let's put a debugger in. Oh, it's because I didn't have a return value. Wah, wah. There we go. Okay. So now I have kind of like my 3 bits of information that I need. So remember, node lists are live and look like arrays but aren't arrays. So we can use this handy like array from method and then just wrap what the node list, the return node list is. And then we can map over it as if it were an array. Okay, so now that I have this info.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I was wondering how it would look with like a for each, the way Tori put it in the chat.
Huh?
Like Tori put something in the chat.
Oh,
like
sure. So you can do, what Tori's saying is you can do like for each, and then you can say like, let info equals an empty array, and then you can say like info.push. Something like that, I think is what Tori is saying. Yeah, that works too.
Thanks.
Okay, so now that I have my info kind of in here, and I know that the order is going to be consistent. Here's the name, here's the population, here's the bird, right? So now I think I'm going to do kind of what Bryce suggested, which is kind of just put this inside of an HTML tag here, or a string, backtick string tag, or it's not a tag, I'm just going to turn this into a string. And then let's see. So then I can basically say something like, I probably need to create a function called generate form. And I'll pass the info in here. And then with the info, I will, oh, hold on, let's maybe take this out for now. And then I can return a bit of string, and then I can kind of use the form to kind of like fill in like these values, right? So I can say like info 0, info 1, info 2. Yeah, that looks kind of good. And then I'll basically say country details dot div dot inner HTML equals, I'm going to reset what's inside and say generate form and then pass in the info. And let's see if this works. There we go. That looks good. Maybe we should do something where we disable the button. So we can say like, the only thing is, how are we going to get it enabled again? e.target.disable or e.target.disable equals true. Let's see if this works. No. Does anyone remember how to turn that disable on?
I think it might just be disabled with a D at the end.
Disabled, okay. There we go, cool. And then maybe in here, it would actually probably be helpful if we gave these things some more information. So I also want the ID of the country to go in here as well. So maybe I can start off with saying like e.target.dataset.country. And then in here, that would be the first thing. So I'll push these all up one. And then maybe down here, we'll say class input. Maybe we'll do something like We can just get all of the in. No, that wouldn't work.
Do you do a hidden field?
No, I'm not quite. So the way that we submit forms is going to be different than how we do them in JavaScript or in Rails, because we're not actually going to submit the form, and you'll see what I mean when I say that. Oh, okay, yeah, we can leave it like this for now, and we can just say, maybe I'll just put an ID here, and yeah, I'll do this ID and say submit, and then I'll put the country ID here, so it's like info 0. Or let's see. How do I want to do this? So I'll make the ID edit country, and I'll make the data set or data dash country equals this. Oops. Okay. So I'll click edit the country. This is now disabled, so I can't click it, but I can submit the country. Interesting. This should be causing a refresh. Oh, I just don't have an event listener on, so, but it still should be causing the page to refresh because it's a form. Oh, it's not a form. I took the form out. So we could say, we still have to do like form, class equals edit form. And the reason I'm giving this a class versus an ID is because theoretically we could open up a bunch of edits. I wouldn't really want anybody to do that, because once we submit the form, for one, as you'll see, all of the edits would kind of go away. So in a situation like that, and maybe an example that I'll go over next week is like, how could we have an edit form like be on a separate page? Again, I don't really like the idea of having multiple edit forms on one page, because if I click submit here, what you're going to see again is that all of these would go away. And there's a way, I guess, where we could prevent that from happening. So I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what we come up with. Okay. Alrighty. So great. Now that I have this in here, I'm going to say, oh, golden is, we're missing the golden. It needs to be golden eagle. Why did golden eagle not make it through? Let me put a, this shows. Why didn't you make it? Why didn't you make it in? Info 3. Weird. That's really frustrating. The form values should be able to have spaces. Maybe I need to put it all inside of this. There we go. Because I think what was happening is that eagle was just floating inside of the HTML. Like if we go look at it, I bet eagle was in here somewhere. Yeah, it was just like hanging out right there. So I needed to wrap it in quotes. Oops. Okay. So now what we can do is,
Question, Chris.
go ahead.
Why did that happen? Why did it show up outside of the tag, I guess?
Because it had to be in quotes, because if we did it this way, it would have only grabbed the first word inside. So it was basically doing this.
Oh.
So I had to wrap the entire thing in quotes like that.
And that's just like for that instance, not for like the one where it says population.
Well, I guess, sure. I mean, all of these are gonna can potentially have, well, the name especially can have more than one word. So it might be smart to do it there as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then once we change it to, I don't know, maybe it's like the silver eagle, right? I want to be able to click submit country. And so good. It did what I wanted now. See how it, like, if you pay attention to this little symbol up here, you'll see that the page quickly refreshes, right? And we need to use our prevent default method to keep that from happening. But what also happened is the size shrinks, which is very sad. But we'll fix it in a second. Okay, any questions so far? Yes, as long as there are no spaces, you don't need the quotes, exactly. But we can't know for sure what needs spaces and what doesn't, right? Okay, so now let's turn on our event listener, and we can say like, oh, we have our event listener right here. So now I'm gonna do an event listener for any of the submits. And this means that if any of the forms inside of here get submitted, right? Submit can either be pressing the submit button or pressing enter, right? And because submits can only happen on forms, I don't feel like there's a need right now to kind of specify the target. So I'll just leave it like this. Basically what I'll want to do is I want to collect the information again. So I'll say like let info equals e.target. The target is going to be the form in this case. Let's just make sure. So I'll console log and say, I'll ask, what is the target of this event? And then remember, if it is, we want to do e.prevent default. And that's going to prevent the page from refreshing. Okay, excellent. So in order to get the info again, we can simply do what we had done previously. We can say, let info equal e.target.query selector all. Span, or no, in this case, it'll be input. And then we can iterate over each of them and just say input dot value. So sorry. And we can push the value onto our info array. Let's see if this works. Great. Oh, the only thing is that we have that submit country. I don't think we're going to use it, but we can I don't know. We can get rid of it if we want to. Info.com, sorry. I don't know. Feels unnecessary, but I guess we're kind of like sanitizing data or whatever. So now that I have this info here, I need to construct my post request. So in order to generate my post request, I am going to call fetch again. And this time we know that, or sorry, this is going to be a put. This will be a put request. So I'll need to make a request to localhost 3000 / countries. And then here is where I'm going to interpolate the country ID. So this is why we don't need the hidden input field. I'm just going to say e.target.dataset.country. That's where we stored it in the form. Oh, no, we didn't. So I'll actually go ahead and put that up here. It's not, it shouldn't be on the submit button. It should be on the form itself. So then this is going to make that post request here. But whenever we're making anything besides a get, we need to provide a second argument. And that second argument is always an object with a bunch of information inside of here. Is it okay if I move my screen text to be this size? Is this bothering anybody? Okay. Okay, so I have to go set up this route in my backend in my controller. My controller, I'll go to config routes, and I'll say resource countries only, and then I'll have an edit here. And then inside of my countries controller, I'll go ahead and put an edit route, and then let's just put in a bybug, and we'll hit this bybug once once we've submitted our request, right? And then there are a couple things that need to go in here. So can anyone tell me, if anyone's gotten this far, what needs to go inside of this second argument that's an object? Is it edit? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's update. It's update. Wah. Update. So what goes in here?
Wild guess, but is it param?
Nope. Where is this where config opt.js is? What are you? I'm not sure if I understand your question. The configuration objects. I think so. Yes, so our method and our headers go here. So the first key inside of our object, yes, our configuration object is here, and we'll say that this is a put request. We'll also need to put in our headers, and the headers here have, can someone correct me if I'm wrong, content type application /JSON. Does this look right to everybody who has seen headers recently?
That looks right. Do you also need the accepts application /JSON?
I believe that content type works by itself, but
okay.
You might see this also in here. I'm forgetting accepts. To me, I think accepts is like what this fetch request will accept as a return. Content type is what we're shipping over. All right, content type has a string. So whenever we have like something like a dash inside of our key for our object, it needs to go in strings, right? Otherwise, if it's just one word, it's fine as is. And then we have to put the body. And what's inside of our body are the key value pairs for our params.
It's looking like it's word accept and not accepts, by the way.
Oh, accept, thank you. And here is a tricky step that almost everybody forgets, including me. We have to say JSON.stringify, and we have to wrap the body in this really, really strange method, meaning we're taking a JSON object and we're turning it into a string. It's very tricky and confusing, but you need it every time. It's basically kind of the inverse of doing this, right? We're taking something that's like in a string format and turning it into JSON, and then here we're kind of doing the reverse, we're sending it back. So in this case, we can say the name is going to be info0. The population is going to be info1. And the bird is going to be info2. And that's why I was saying we're going to ignore the third one. So it's not really necessary to take this off if we don't really want to, because we're just going to kind of ignore it. And this fetch request is ultimately going to expect a response. So then we can start a .then chain on it once we've submitted it. Yes, you can do the deconstructing syntax. Wait. Maybe name. So but info doesn't have. If info had key value pairs, I think you could do that. Maybe. If for those of you who don't understand what Bryce is asking, it's okay. You'll see this at some point. But I think if you had an info or info hash, or oh, I see what you're saying. So if info, oh shoot, I'm forgetting how I would do this. Name pop bird is info. Oh wait, it would just be, so we'll say info. I don't know if I know exactly what you mean, Bryce. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's how you would write it. Because info is already an array, so I don't know. Oh, you're trying to like turn. Oh yeah, so you would say let name name. Yeah. Okay. So it would say let info equal Mexico 200 eagle. Oops. And then you could say let name pop info equal next or equal info, or I guess it should be bird. And then you have name pop. So this is destructuring. We'll learn about this next week. So you could do that if you wanted. Because of line 74, let's see, because of line 74, well, so the info that's going into the form is in a different order than the info that's going into the body, right? In the form, I needed to put the country ID somewhere in here so that I had access to that number, right? Which I'm using up here, right? But down here, then I begin to do the name, the population, and the bird. But inside of the body, I just need the name, the population, and the bird. So the order is different, 0, 1, 2. Does that make sense, Osha? Okay. So then we'll console log the response here. So let's try this out. I'm gonna click edit a country. It's gonna be the silver eagle. Submit it. Okay, hold on. JSON.stringify. Oh, shoot. I forgot to close this out. Gosh darn it. So this is what we call JavaScript hell, where you don't remember where your, here we go. Gosh damn it, Bryce. Okay, silver eagle. Submit. Okay, and we should be in the bybug. Great. So inside of our bybug, we have access to params, just like we did before, and we have our name, our population, and our bird. And we also have the ID of the country. So we're still going to need strong params here. So I'll go down into my country controller, private method, and say country params. And then we can say require country, which means that we still need to do something else, right? If we want to follow like these kind of strong params, then you could argue that we would need to do something like country and then put this all inside of another hash or inside of another object. So we could say permit country or require country, permit, and then we can say like args. We can do the args thing here as well. So let me try that again. We need to say country params, name, population, bird. Let's see, what did I spell wrong? Undefined method plus for country symbol. Oh, require. Oh, params dot require.
Is it,
You misspelled params.
Yeah.
Params. Population. Third. There we go. So then, just as before, we can say country equals country.define params ID country.update. Let me just make sure that the country has like a bird attribute. Yeah. Country.update, country params, name, population, bird. And then we can say render JSON. I want to send back the updated country like this. If I type in continue, well, that's not going to work now. I have to send it through again, but I took the bybug out. Silver Eagle. Response cores. Oh, of course, I have to do. I have to say. But you can see that it's changed already. Gold Eagle. To the log e.json. Oh shoot. Okay, so I have to return e.json. That's not supposed to be an e, this should be like a response. It's not an event. JSON. And then I can say dot then. Is this for this one? Yeah. I think I've gone a little bit awry with my indentation here. Dot then console.log. Cool. And then I get my country back. Okay, yeah, so probably gonna go another 15 minutes. I always say that it ends up being a half hour, so buckle your seatbelts. But I told you that editing is going to be the hardest. I hope that you feel like you know you can do create and delete. Okay. So the last thing that we need to do, obviously, is once the country is submitted, we need to put the updated country back onto the screen. Are we still trying to keep logic in model files as much as possible? Bryce, I'm not sure I know what you mean. Is there an example of where you think we didn't put something in the right place? As far as backend Ruby, of course, everything should go, the controller should be as small as possible, right? We haven't really quite gotten into what this looks like in JavaScript yet.
Chris, the serializer in your model, I think it was. Can you go back to that?
What about it?
I don't understand it.
Were you at the lecture yesterday?
Sorry?
Did you watch the lecture yesterday?
I did, and I knew you were like doing it as a kind of what's it called? An added feature that you were saying, like you don't have to do this type of thing.
Remember,
So
it's just taking this logic and putting it somewhere else.
Oh, right, because you're using the same app. Okay, that's. I forgot you were using the same thing as you were yesterday.
Yeah, it's the same.
But if we weren't doing that serializer, it would just be render JSON country.new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so going back to my situation here, I want to take a moment to talk about one kind of concept called optimistic versus pessimistic rendering. Okay, how many of you have, I remember when I was camping for 4 days, I was out of cell phone service the entire time, and I missed the comfort of scrolling on my feed before bed. But I knew that there were a handful of posts that were preloaded, and so I did this really insane capitalistic ritual where I just looked at the same 10 posts over and over and over again, and I liked them and I left comments on them, even though I know that the comments and the likes didn't actually go anywhere. I didn't have any cell phone service, right? But you have witnessed before when you're using these kinds of devices where they will give you the satisfaction of that, like, you know, that heart filling up or the comment looking like it's posted, even though it's not. This is called optimistic rendering, and it's the more satisfying way of rendering information to the DOM. We're not even making sure if the request went through. We're not even making sure if the backend, you know, approved the information that we put in, right? We're just going to give the user the satisfaction of having contributed to this thing, even though we really don't know if it has or has not yet, right? So that's called optimistic rendering. Pessimistic rendering is any bit of information that whenever you submit something on the screen and you receive like a swirling bar and you don't get confirmation until the swirling, the little swirling image goes away and says success, been submitted. That's pessimistic rendering. That's saying we're gonna wait until we get a confirmation from the server before we make any changes on the DOM, right? So you are gonna have to make the decision of how you want this information to appear on the DOM. In order to follow optimistic rendering, we need to change the DOM in the dot then chain, right, after we've received confirmation from the server. In order to follow this is pessimistic rendering. Optimistic rendering in order to follow optimistic rendering, we can ignore the fetch requests almost or basically entirely, right? because, so I can either, I can use this information if I want. That got sent back to me from my, the backend, right? But I already have it here, right? So, so why would why do I need this information? Let me think, where's that method that writes, here, this makes a country div. And I think it depends if it's done. Okay, so then what I can kind of do is I can just use my, like I can say country container dot inner HT, or wait, hold on. So then I can find, I guess I would need to find that element. So I can say, something like country div, let country div equal, oh, so I'd say country info div. Country info div equal document.get element by ID. And I know that the info div is, or details div, I guess is what I should call it. Country details div, document.get element by ID. Country, I can say e.target.dataset.country here, details. And this is getting pretty laborious to write out, so I can also just say, let country ID equal this, and then I can just use country ID here. And country ID here. And then I can say country details div dot inner HTML now equals, and then I just want to, okay, so I'm gonna have to change the way I process this a little bit. I might have to do something like function country, let's say country container inner HTML plus equals make country div, pass in country, and then just make this a return. And then down here, I can set this equal, I can reuse this function to make country div. But the problem is that I need this to look like this when I pass this in. So maybe we can start constructing the body. I can say like let body equals ID equals country ID. And then I can do name is info 0. And I can do population equals info 1. And I can do bird is info 2. And then in here, I can just say body. And then I can just pass the body in here. I think this should work. So edit country, bold eagle, submit country. What's going on? Did I need to refresh the page? Silver. No, okay, what's going on? Cannot read map of undefined on JS23. Oh, shoot. Shoot. Ah, that's right. because I only really want this. I only really need to make this. So I guess what I can do is I can go back to the way I had it before. It's fine. I can just do doesn't like me. That's strange. Country ID. Info 0. Info 1. You guys can see why nobody writes applications in vanilla JavaScript anymore, right? If you didn't get that already. Gold eagle. There we go. Oh, I just need to enable this again. So, sure, I'll make this ID delete button and then I'll put the country ID in here. And then down at the bottom, I'll say country edit button equals document. Or I can say, I'll just do like document get element by ID. What was it? Delete button, country ID. Country ID. And then say dot disabled equals false. What did I do? Oh, right, I changed it. I changed it. Oh, I guess I'll have both. That's fine. And then if I refresh the page, it's still up to date. Okay. So that was editing. And like I said, it's the hardest one. Now you can see why. You don't need to include editing in your applications if you don't want to. You can just do create and edit, which are a bajillion times easier. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, go for it. There are, again, I've said this before to several of you in our pod meetings, but I want to reiterate it again. I can think of, the whole time I was coding this out, I was also thinking of another way to do it. So I can think of at least 2 or 3 ways to do this. Yeah. So again, the psychosis of JavaScript is just that there are so many ways to do things. I'm trying to show you the ways that I think are the easiest. Going back in this, I could probably find ways to kind of refactor it and make it a little bit kind of easier for us to reuse some of these bits of code, right? It's not the most dry. But but it's possible. So I want you all to try to make it work in the way that makes sense to you, and I will try to meet you where you are. And my job as a teacher is to try to see what makes sense to you, what you're understanding, and support you in reaching your goal following that path. You don't have to follow mine. But this is one way that I could see it being done. I wish I had time to show you all of the ways it could be done. But there are just too many.
Could you even provide like an exact summary, a few sentences of the top other two ways you would do it? I probably won't understand it, but at least I'll jot down notes.
How about this? I won't explain any other ways to do it, but I'll let other people unmute themselves and talk about ways they think they might have done it. If there aren't any, it's okay. Ryan, were you gonna say something? Oh, Regina. Oh.
So I mean, like, there's so many different things. Like, for instance, how you're writing out the HTML, we can create the elements and save elements to variables. For instance, Ryan, do you remember how we've done that before?
Yep.
Where we do like document dot create element.
Mm-hmm.
And you just give it, like, you know, if he's making a div, you in the parentheses you say div. If you're making a p tag, you give it a p, and then you're able to manipulate that element.
Yep.
But like that's one of the many ways. Like you're saying, you did. You just showed us what optimistic rendering.
Mm-hmm.
I think in, I think. Is it the Pokemon Lab that we do this, like, for the first time? We actually like create and stuff. I think that the Pokemon Lab, the way that I did pessimistic rendering, which I didn't even realize like that's what that was at the time. Like that's just the way that I was like, okay, and then I'll receive this information back, and then I'll create this off of that. I don't know if you caught what I said, Ryan. Do you remember how to like create?
I'm sorry, Regina. I literally got a call like.
Do you remember how to create elements, like document.create element, and then you give it like a div or p, and it creates that that tag for you?
Right.
So like that's one way how he's written it out in HTML. You could have also created each of those elements individually and manipulated them, and then appended them to what was it, the country details div?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then how he did optimistic rendering, but he could have done pessimistic rendering, where he waits until he receives that information back from the fetch request. And then the way that he would have just done, what is it? I'm sorry, I'm a little lost in your code. Is it from like lines 71 to 78? That's where you're rendering the new information? Yeah, that would have just been in one of the then statements instead, right? It would have been like a normal fetch request where you would have said like then response equal, you know, function response JSON, then whatever, and it would have looked a lot more similar to how when you were initially rendering the divs.
Right.
So.
That makes sense.
Like those are two different ways that would have achieved almost the same goal.
Yeah. Now, the longer that we sit here and think about it, I can literally think of so many ways to do this. So, you know, go in the way that works for you. Is it going to be the best way the first time? Probably not. Did I do it the best way? I don't know. Someone could probably argue that I didn't do it the best way. I think the way that I did it is again, really kind of solidifying the core concepts of JavaScript that we want you to learn. And once we get to React, there are rules. It doesn't feel as wild westy as this. We had a meeting yesterday about the JavaScript project and the curriculum and just how JavaScript is such a hard language to teach. And one of my coworkers said something that was really, really great. Like, JavaScript was built in 10 days. and nothing good is built that fast. And so the conundrum of JavaScript is that it was built in 10 days 15 years ago, and ever since then everyone's been trying to fit it into a box, right? All other languages, Ruby especially, well, not all other languages, but many other languages, more modern languages, Ruby, for example, had a concept in mind, right? Had like a pattern in mind that was meant to be followed, had like a theory. JavaScript didn't have that. JavaScript was kind of made all willy-nilly, and the history of JavaScript has just been people trying to wrangle it in and make it make sense. But it's a beast, and it's wild, and it's feels very weird. And everyone has their own kind of way of interpreting how to do it. And again, when we get to React, it's going to feel a lot nicer, I hope, because there is a pattern, and there is just a way to do things. Okay? They've done a lot of the crazy decision making for you, so you can just worry about building applications. So again,
A question related to React. You said in React we're going to be writing the HTML out like sort of similarly to how you do it, and there's no more like create element. So would you kind of recommend to get ourselves prepped for that, that maybe we try and sorry, I'm laughing at Ryan's background. That maybe we try and at least get some practice writing it out if we're not comfortable doing it that way quite yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. It's fine if you do the create element thing. I'm just telling you that once we get to JavaScript or to React, you're never going to use it. So doing the string interpolation is how I don't know. It's how I think it can be done. We'll dive into open office hours now. If there are any questions about this, if people want to hang out and ask more questions about what I did and why I did it, and if people have ideas, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, have a great day, and if I don't see you, have a great weekend. Okay? Bye, everybody. All right, so what questions do we have?
Are
I
you
have a
still
question about the
intentionally
project.
recording? Sorry.
No, I had the record. Oh, why is it? I keep trying to. It takes me like a couple tries for the recording to actually stop recording, and I actually have to. I remember now. I have to move my toolbar over to my main screen and then